going to take a look at Antares or Antares Tech collection of VSTs. Antares is the company that has produced the infamous Auto-Tune, and this is one we're going to take a good look at, and they also have some other products such as the Harmony engine, as well as some of the Avox VST plugins. To get started, what I have here is a short set of acapellas which have been sung deliberately out of tune, out of time, as a collection to try and push the auto-tuning to its limits, so we can see where it has its inherent strengths and also some of the initial downfalls. So first off, this is the sound with no effect whatsoever.
I think it's time to sing.
And when we finished, having a little play with the plugins, we get something a bit more like this.
I think it's time to sing.
So firstly, I'm going to concentrate on the auto-tune. This is the initial waveform, and naturally, looking at it in this manner, it doesn't tell us a great deal about it. If we have a look here, you can see the Antares Auto-Tune window. This is comprised of a few elements: the auto mode and the graphic mode. The auto screen looks like this, compared to the graphical interface we have here. In auto, we're basically letting the tuning software work on its own. It's listening to what you apply through it and adjust the tuning in real time, depending on your settings that you specify. Firstly, choose the correct type of input. You can see we can specify soprano voice, alto tenor voice, low male voice, instrument or bass instrument. It is actually quite important to specify the correct type. This will become especially clear when we look at choosing this with the bass instrument. Obviously with a voice, I shall choose soprano voice. You can specify which key your piece of music should be in. Since this was sung completely a cappella without any musical reference, I could decide to choose any key here that I desire. As you can see, we have the entire chromatic range. Under scale, you have a big list here: major, minor, chromatic, and a collection of others which vary all the way down to 53 tone, down to harmonic and others just out of view. So for example, I could choose C major and let auto-tune correct it for me, with the idea of trying to tune into C major. A personal preference I have is to actually remain on chromatic and then choose set major. You can choose to have the full chromatic, and you see my keyboard changes here. I can specify minor, major, all, bypass all, or remove all. For me, the inherent beauty about having it under chromatic is this. If I return to major and play the soloed voice on its own,
I think it's time to sing.
you can see we have activity here. However, you don't know what is happening down here. If I instead invoke chromatic and choose to set major, and now play the piece of music exactly the same,
I think it's time to sing.
as you can see, we now have an idea of which notes are being hit. You can of course choose to select all, and this will make the tuner respond to try and get every single chromatic note. Additionally, perhaps you prefer to work visually and choose your own key. I could choose the key of G and simply take out all the other ones except for F sharp. If I wanted, I could simply choose G, set major, and as you can see, it does the same process for me, but of course applies this to the entire key range. You can choose to specify major or minor and then adjust particular notes, and basically you can customize this to either be active or bypassed on any individual notes you choose. So I shall leave this set to C major, and I shall use this as the basis for all tuning from here on. At the bottom here we have 4 controls which essentially control how auto-tune is going to respond to input. We have retune speed. The faster you have this set, the quicker auto-tune will respond. The compromise being, the quicker it responds, the more artificial it may sound. However, you have to tweak depending on what you have as an input. You have a master scale detuning. You can see here we're set to concert A being 440 Hz. You can choose to adjust up or down. A simple double click will return to default. The double clicking is true for all of these. If I set quick arbitrary values, a simple double click and each is restored. One of the downsides about having a fast retune is it sounds more artificial. So you can have auto-tune look ahead, if you will, and decide to work quickly on fast notes and a little bit slower on the longer notes. This is where the humanize function comes into play. And then you have control over the natural vibrato. You can choose to reduce or enhance this. If I try a slightly extreme setting,
I think it's time to sing.
you can definitely hear the notes being repitched. You can choose whether or not auto-tune will ignore vibrato of notes. If I now disable this and replay,
I think it's time to sing.
you can definitely hear it wobbling. Aside from controlling your natural vibrato, you can actually choose to explicitly create your own artificial vibrato. You have choice of none, sine wave, square wave, or sawtooth wave as your waveform for the basis of the vibrato, rate, variation, and then onset delay and onset rate. We'll have a look at this when we concentrate on the bass part.